Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 13th of March 2025, and these are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the show. We'll begin with the incident of the Jaffar Express that happened the day before yesterday and continued all during yesterday as well. And we saw how our armed forces, our defense forces, were there to thwart the enemy designs. And at the end of the day, all the 33 terrorists, including the suicide bombers, were sent to hell. But unfortunately, we lost around 21 innocent hostages in the bargain, as well as 4 security forces personnel as well, who attained martyrdom while evacuating all the people that had been taken hostage by these people in this dastardly attack. This brings to light again Pakistan's counter-terrorism narrative and what has been done, what further needs to be done, and how all the different elements that were behind it need to be taken care of and tackled with once and forever. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the latest situation as far as the Middle East, specifically Gaza, is concerned. The total blockade of the Gaza Strip by Israel now has entered its 12th day. The people have all kinds of aid that has been blocked from entering the strip, which leads to a famine-like situation and loss loss of basic commodities that are not present there. To add to that, there is electricity that has been cut as well. Then there are the ceasefire talks that are apparently moving along as far as we know in Doha, but there are 2 different or divergent points of views when it comes to the ceasefire agreement. One says we need to extend the first part of the ceasefire agreement. The others say, that is the Palestinian side or the Hamas, that the second phase needs to begin now so that this comes to its logical end. But apparently there are certain lacunas. Will they be overcome? That is for a lot of spectators to see and to decipher and to decide as well in the coming days. But these days are extremely crucial as far as the future of Gaza is concerned. Then we are going to talk about Canada that has announced additional tariffs of $20.7 billion US dollars on of US goods in response to American steel and aluminium levies. We all know that this had been happening. In the meantime, Donald Trump had even increased the percentage to 50%, but then he went back to 25%. Nevertheless, this is the reaction that is coming from Canada as well as from the European Union as well. Also, an international team of scientists are developing genetically modified mosquitoes. Yes, this is happening. That could halt the spread of malaria, which is, of course, as we speak, the world's most deadly disease. How they are going to achieve that is what we will discuss in our last story. Let's begin with our first, and that concerns the Jaffar Express incident and all that emanated in the last 48 hours. The resolve of our armed forces to thwart all the enemy designs, so as also the resolve of our government and our armed forces, and what one has understood from this attack. We have been joined by Dr. Qamar Cheema. He's a senior analyst online. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saab, let me recapitulate a little bit before we begin our discussion. 11th March 2025, the day before yesterday, Jaffar Express traveling from Quetta to Peshawar is attacked by heavily armed terrorists near Sibbi. 440 passengers were apparently present in the Jaffar Express when this attack took place. The terrorists blew up the railway track, took control of the train, held passengers hostage, including women, children, and elderly, used them as human shields. The security forces immediately responded, and of course, after a prolonged, intense, and daring operation, because so as to minimize the casualties, security forces eliminated all the 33 terrorists, including the suicide bombers. Yes, they were present there as well, and rescued the hostages in a phased manner. 21 hostages also lost their lives in the bargain before the commencement of the clearance operations. And this needs to be made clear as well. Also, 4 brave security forces soldiers embraced Shahadat. How effective, Qamar, has our forces' response been to this heinous incident? And now, looking at this incident, what should Pakistan's modus operandi be?
Well, thank you very much, Batsa, for having me. I think the most important point yesterday was made by the DG ISPR, the DG Inter-Services Public Relations, that the rules of the game have changed now. The way the BLA, the globally designated terrorist organization, the way they have they have made innocent people hostages. I think this has changed the rule of the game. Let me tell you, it was about 48 years ago, back in 1977, when the train was hijacked in Netherlands. And after 48 years, this is an incident of its different kind. It has never happened before. So in my assessment, those who did this kind of an act were innocent people, and we have heard the anecdotes of the people who have who got released and after the successful operation. Obviously, we need to thank our brave soldiers. They have been killing people indiscriminately. There is no humanity, there is no religion on which these people belong to. They are not our Baloch friends. They are not Baloch. They are not Muslims. They are basically terrorists, and we need to call them terrorists. And I think what needs to be done further, definitely that is an important question. I think the Pakistan military, the law enforcement agencies, police, they cannot work without the support of the civilians. So I think the civilian population in Balochistan, they need first to, obviously they do appreciate the sacrifices of our law enforcement agencies, but they need to raise this momentum that how come these terrorist organizations like BLA, they want to recruit people, or they have been trying to create a wedge between the armed forces and the people, and how come they will not let the Balochistan grow. So all those investors who are coming from abroad, or the people of Pakistan, those who are investing in Balochistan, who is keeping them poor? It is basically these terrorists who are keeping them poor. These terrorists, basically those who call themselves the BLA or the so-called Majid Brigade Group, they are the ones who don't want there should be business in Balochistan. So the society, the Baloch people, they need to come forward, and they need to take an initiative, and they need to reject them openly, vocally, and they need to talk publicly on this, that this cannot happen, that a group of terrorists can come and they can target those innocent people. So once for all, a strong societal reaction is needed. Once for all, a strong, on foreign policy domain, a strong regional reaction is needed. We have to
Let's
remember,
talk
looking
about,
at the
let's talk
forest
about regional reaction. Qamar, let's talk about the regional reaction. Now, the ISPR says that intelligence reports have unequivocally confirmed that the attack was orchestrated and directed by terrorist ringleaders who were operating from Afghanistan and who were in direct communication with terrorists throughout the incident. Pakistan has said through the ISPR statement, and today also the Foreign Office spokesperson also said the same, that Pakistan expects the Afghan interim government to uphold its responsibilities and deny the use of its soil for terrorist activities against Pakistan. My question that I've already asked you, but I'm going to ask this again in the wake of what is happening: hasn't Pakistan time and again asked the Afghan interim government to stop the infiltration of terrorist outfits from its soil into ours? Also, isn't Afghanistan a Muslim country that prides itself on strict enforcement of Islamic laws? What kind of Islam allows Muslims or any person to kill others for any pretext whatsoever? And why is the Afghan interim government, in your point of view, refusing to act despite the various pledges made by Pakistan?
Well, I think this is an important question. This is where, our friends in Afghanistan, they need to understand. We have been treating the people of Afghanistan with utmost care. We have been protecting them. We have given them shelter when they were facing either civil war, or when they were facing the Soviet invasion, when there was a war against terrorism going on. It was Pakistan which opened the borders and embraced these people. They came here, and now is a time they need to respond us back by making Pakistan more secure. We really wanted Afghanistan to be secure. We really wanted that Afghan people to live in peace. And now is a time when Pakistan is growing, and international investors like the Chinese investment came in Pakistan. They're letting this terrorist organization to have place in Afghanistan. Now they have camps in Afghanistan. Now is a time that the Afghan authorities and the Afghan governed people, they need to make a clear approach. And I think this is where the Afghan people need to ask a question to the Taliban regime, that whether they will allow these terrorists to operate, whether these either ethnic militants or the Islamic groups which are there, those who commit terrorism on the name of the religion or the name of the ethnicity, will they be allowed to live in Afghanistan the way they are living? If this is the way, and I think then Pakistan needs to change an approach regarding Afghanistan. Then I think there should be no mercy.
All right, you say
Yes,
this
please.
should be no mercy, and Pakistan should change its modus operandi regarding Afghanistan. And that brings me to a statement of the DG ISPR. He was talking to a private news channel, and different questions were being asked from him regarding the Jaffar Express incident. And he says, and I'll quote, he says, "Whoever does this, let me say it very clearly, will be hunted down and brought to justice. Let me also say, quote unquote, that this incident of Jaffar Express changes the rules of the game." I think this is a very, very important point. No one can be permitted to make innocent people of Pakistan the victim of their barbarism in the streets, trains, buses, or markets because of their misleading ideas and instructions and facilitation of foreign masters. And of course, that the terrorists had nothing to do with either Islam, Pakistan, or Balochistan. I'd like your take on these statements, because all of these I feel are very important.
Well, obviously, as the DG ISPR mentioned, this is basically, I think, the approach. You know, when the terrorist organization like BLA, they can make the entire train hostage. Obviously, the entire global media is projecting Pakistan from this lens. The world is showing sympathy. Remember, let me tell you, the entire international community responded and showed sympathy with the people who were the hostages. So obviously, the Pakistan understands this reaction. That's why we have the law enforcement and the government has taken a clear approach that the rules of the game have changed. And I think that means that there will not be any space in Balochistan or anywhere in the Pakistan where they can hide. Remember, these terrorist organizations, they do not control any space. There is not an inch of a country there is not an inch of a space in this country which these terrorist organizations are controlling. They come, they do an activity, they commit an act of violence, or they commit an act of terrorism, and then they disappear. So I think now they will be hunted down, they will be searched, we will find them. And I think for this matter, even if Pakistan needs to take extraordinary measures in terms of getting them from the neighboring country, Pakistan should not hesitate. I think if our security means that those who are targeting us they are residing in Afghanistan, then Pakistani authorities, they must not hesitate. For Pakistani authorities and for the government of Pakistan, the most important thing is to protect its citizens, its civilians, its law enforcement agencies. That is the most important thing for them. If those who are targeting us, they are hiding in the neighboring country in Afghanistan, if Pakistan gets peaceful by targeting them inside that country, Pakistan must not hesitate. And I think by this statement that the rules of the game have changed, I think now obviously out of the box solution will be found, will be searched, that how to get hold of these militants, and at the same time those who are supporting them, providing them any kind of intelligence, giving them, and those who are giving them an ideological support or accept their political or the separatist narrative, then obviously the society need to take an action on this. And for this matter, until and unless there is a whole of a nation approach, obviously these challenges will remain. But I think the Pakistani military, law enforcement agencies, and the government, enough is enough. Now is the time to end this mess forever.
All right, stay online with us, Qamar. We've also been joined by Brigadier Farooq Hameed. He's a defense analyst. Brigadier Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Sir, the reactions have come as far as this heinous incident is concerned. They have come from the United Nations, they have come from the United Kingdom, from the United States, from France, from China. And they are all, of course, identifying the problem and are very compassionate towards those who were basically affected by this heinous incident. The US Embassy extends deepest condolences, and that we strongly condemn the attack. And they say that they specifically also name the BLA, which they say has been banned by the US administration. and has been declared a terrorist organization, in fact. The UN Secretary General spokesperson of Stefan Dujarric also said that the UN was closely monitoring the evolution of the situation. Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, David Lammy, said that the United Kingdom condemned the terrorist attack in Balochistan. China strongly condemned the attack and said that the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said that China firmly opposes terrorism in any form and added, we will continue to firmly support Pakistan in combating terrorism, maintain solidarity and social stability. The French embassy in Pakistan also said the same. How do you view this outpouring of international reaction? The Australian High Commissioner also talked about it. So did the German ambassador. Could this outpouring also, or shouldn't it, translate into a tangible collaboration with Pakistan against such outfits?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I would be very careful in accepting on the word these statements, especially coming from Western countries, for the reason that use weapons that worth billions of dollars that in Pakistan, our security forces, our people for the last 3 years. Number one. And number two, it is not only a nexus of the Afghan Taliban government and the Indians that these proxy groups, that their proxy groups operating from Afghan bases with the US weapons have been targeting or have been launching terrorist attacks in Pakistan. There is also a very strong perception, oblique reality, that maybe some Western agencies are also in collusion in this nexus to destabilize Pakistan, because remember, it is CPEC in Balochistan which has been the main reason for the last almost many years. Gawada Port, Gawada CPEC operations, which have been targeted by the West. I would take the Chinese statement very seriously, in the sense that yes, with Chinese we have a very deep understanding, and whenever they find that Pakistan is in trouble in any form, even at the United Nations Security Council, if there's any resolution against us by the Indians or sponsored by the West in a very dubious manner, the Chinese have always stood by Pakistan. So I would take, as far as the United Nations is concerned, well, I would be very skeptical about what the United Nations is saying and why it is saying that. That I'll leave it just here. So what I'm trying to say is that we have been the victims of a foreign nexus, whether it is KP or Balochistan. And the question that you raised for the earlier panelist, I would like to respond to that also. I believe when the DGISPR says that the rules of the game have changed, well, I think there's going to be a three-pronged strategy which is now going to be adopted by the federal government and, of course, the military establishment. One, they should and they will go in a hot pursuit wherever these militants are trying to hide out, the hideouts in Balochistan. I'm sure our intelligence agencies would know where to hit them, and they should be hit hard. Second is the strikes against the militant bases in Afghanistan. I'm sure, again, we've done once or twice in the past, and we have all the information, and that is where we required a little intelligence sharing from the Chinese and perhaps the Americans also, so that we can, wipe them out as far as possible from Afghan soil. And the third is, of course, going to be and should be a political strategy. It's a homegrown strategy, in the sense that we need to talk, we need to take on board the local people, the local population in the Baloch majority areas, in the areas where there's a lot of unrest, where the BLA operates.
I understand your perspective. I think it's a very important one, and I'm sure that our agencies, our government and our defense forces are working towards that. Qamar, there's a very important aspect to all of that, and that is the disinformation or the misinformation that has been spread while this incident was happening, because 48 hours have now passed. The DGISPR in that private television channel interview also criticized this flow of misinformation online and on social media, specifically coming from India. He talked about the nexus between the terrorists and their masters to the whole world. He also talked about some specific political elements in Pakistan who also partook in such activities enthusiastically and activated their social media teams. And he said, and I'm quoting whatever he said, instead of standing with the state, they could be seen creating baseless justifications and reasons for this horrible terrorist acts. Sadly, he said, some elements are sacrificing the national interest due to their lust for political power. Our Information Minister, Ataullah Tara Saab, also criticized the Indian media, but also said that some political elements use this sad incident to gloss their politics. And he said such elements should be ashamed of making a false narrative and urged they should be have talked about credibility regarding this operation. He also condemned politics over this issue. Looking at all of these different aspects, I'm highlighting this because I want your take on how Pakistan now politically, administratively, and of course from a security point of view move forward.
Well, obviously, this question of disinformation, misinformation, I think this is there, and it obviously started coming from the Indian media when the BL started sharing information with the Indian media. And then the Indian media started sharing AI videos or old videos of some incidents, even if they were not from Pakistan. And then some our own people started sharing that information just to undermine the capability and skills of our law enforcement. This have happened in the past, but the only thing which we have seen is the reaction. The reaction of our law enforcement agencies, that was excellent. The way all those hostages have been released, it has never happened in the history. Remember the example which I gave you, where the Dutch separatists took hold of the train. Majority of the hostages were killed. But in this kind of a situation where there is a difficult terrain, it was difficult to reach there. It was an open terrain. But the way our commandos, our law enforcement reached, obviously all those people who were making rumors, they had to, their mouth was shut after last night when the DGISPR told that all those terrorists have been killed or eliminated. So here we have been dealing with this information, but I think the only way for us is that to give more information so that this misinformation could be countered. That is one thing. But definitely, I think we have to make one thing very clear, and that is, we need a whole of a nation approach. And when whole of a nation approach means that we have to deal it from all sides, and we need to take this as a test case example, and that means that it will never happen again. And for this, I think a larger chunk of the support needs to come from Balochistan, where the people needs to talk that how long they will face these terrorists. These security forces are there which are protecting the foreign investors, which are protecting the people of Balochistan, which are protecting the investments. But at the end of the day, the more the local people, our broach friends, will speak, the more the people will discard them, and they need to come out of this fear. They need to, that these terrorists they have already, their aim is to create panic. Their aim is to take away the trust from the state. And I think that's where the society needs to stand and support, which they have been supporting in the past, by the way. But I think more support is needed so that any kind of support these militants are getting from from local sources, that need to be ended. And obviously, that is how the whole of the nation approach will help us to eliminate these terrorists.
All right, Brigadier Farooq, Hameed Saab, Dr. Qamar Cheema points towards a whole of nation approach. When you have elements in our society and within our political circles who are trying to malign the very efforts that the Pakistan armed forces have been putting into thwart the enemy designs, how should how should, in your point of view, we could have a whole of Pakistan approach and make them also understand that their anti-Pakistan narrative or anti-armed forces narrative is not going to help them, but it's going to malign Pakistan in the short term and in the long term as well. Because even I'm just want to also cite an example of those passengers who were rescued. They had only praise for our armed forces, our Levi's forces, our FC personnel, and they thanked them tremendously. On every media we have the short interviews, we have small videos of these people thanking our armed forces. But at the same time, there's the host propaganda against our armed forces that has been going on by certain elements in Pakistan. How should we deal with it in the wake of such incidents? Isn't Pakistan the priority? Shouldn't Pakistan be the priority for every Pakistani?
I agree that we can only have a whole of a nation approach if all political parties they have the priority as Pakistan first. That is the priority, and they shun and they leave aside all the political differences. And we also end the state of political polarization in Pakistan. We need to bring all political parties on board, and for that, the best example that we had an whole of a nation approach was, if you recall, in 2014 when we had the Sania Army Public School, and Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was then running the government in Islamabad, and I remember that we had an all-party conference. The entire political leadership was there. All political parties, minor, all the government, those outside the government, they were all there. The military establishment was there, and they all were under one roof on the same table. And when the meeting ended, they came up with that national consensus document called the National Action Plan, the roadmap that was set by and the military leadership of Pakistan. I think that was the wonderful display of a whole of nation approach, and that was followed by Operation Zarb-e-Azab. That was fully supported 200% by every Pakistani, and we went after the terrorists in Operation Zarb-e-Azab in North Waziristan, and we broke their back, and in the real sense. And also the National Action Plan was then implemented at all levels. So that is what is now some.
All right. There's a little issue, technical issue. We can't hear you properly. But thank you so very much, sir, to have joined us and to have given us your eminent point of view as far as Pakistan's security paradigm is concerned. Qamar, Cheema, Pakistan at the United Nations Forum has also said that we need to take all necessary measures to protect the country from terrorist outfits in Afghanistan. We have a national prevention of violent extremism policy. We have a national action plan. We have seen how the BLA has been destructive along with other parties such as the Fitna as far as destabilizing Pakistan. There's a whole spate of incidents that the BLA has been involved in Balochistan. Moving forward, in your point of view, looking at these two policies, the National Prevention of Violent Extremism policy and the National Action Plan, what should Pakistan, how should Pakistan take things forward in order to stabilize its country and prevent such attacks in the future?
Well, obviously, but Saab, the important thing is that we have been doing kinetic operations and eliminating these terrorists. But the one thing which is required, one day we need to work more on the diplomatic domain. In the diplomatic domain, we need to take forward this approach where we need to talk with the regional countries. Either it is, India, Afghanistan, Iran, Central Asian countries, Russia, China. There needs to be a regional approach. Remember, these terrorists are not operating only in Pakistan. They have their linkages in the region. It's India, Afghanistan, which, the Foreign Office today openly said that they had the connections in Afghanistan. So what stops Pakistan to talk with Afghanistan or to ask the regional countries to pressurize Afghan Taliban for this? How long will they be hosting these terrorist organizations? If America got an agreement with the Taliban that if the Afghan soil will be used against the United States will come back and hit you. Can't we hit Afghanistan? So obviously sometimes people like us, we get, in trouble that why we are unable to do this. So more of a diplomatic, support is required. More of a diplomatic solution is required, and we need to hit inside Afghanistan so that the people, those who are laying lives in Pakistan, because of these militants in Afghanistan, they should know that the government is doing enough to keep Pakistan safe.
Thank you very much, Dr. Qamar Cheema, to have joined us. That was Dr. Qamar Cheema, senior analyst, joining us, and also Brigadier Farooq Hameed with us. But the fact is, Dr. Qamar Cheema did point towards more robust diplomatic action and Pakistan's highlighting of this incident in all different fora. Pakistan has been doing that. Pakistan has shared actionable evidence with all the important stakeholders across the world and has time and again said this with facts and figures to the world, to the important countries in the global north and the south, on what the modus operandi of the Afghan Taliban's, patronaged terrorist outfits has been since the last couple of months. What will happen now? How the rules of the game will change, as the DGISPR has said, that I think only time will tell. But I think the reaction will come, and the reaction will be, inshallah, very swift and strong from the Pakistani side. Let's come to the second segment today, and that concerns the situation as far as Middle East, specifically Gaza, is concerned. Now, 12th day of the blockage of aid into Gaza. This is leading to a lot of issues, whether it be famine-like situation, whether it be the law, if you don't have food, water, medicine and other necessities that are coming to you, and 12 days have passed, and this also in the wake of a ceasefire agreement that is happening, which is already in place, between the Israeli side and the Palestinian side. Then adding to that, cutting the electricity of the Gaza Strip, which is leading to other health-related issues and issues, because if imagine a place without food and electricity. I mean, I fail to understand or comprehend why people are doing this under the current situation. And on top of that, we have talks on the ceasefire situation also going on, and the future of the ceasefire agreement going on in Doha as we speak, where mediators are present. We have been joined by Farhan, Bokhari, foreign affairs analyst, to discuss more on that. Farhan, thank you very much to have joined us.
Good to be here. Thank you.
The pleasure is all ours. 12th day of the blockade of aid. To add to that, there is no electricity. Time and again, the Palestinian side has asked Israel to do it, but they are not doing any of that. What is Israeli side or Israel planning to achieve by blocking of humanitarian aid and electricity? What are they trying to achieve when a ceasefire agreement is already in place and talks on that are going on?
This is absolute application of brutal force. It's madness. It's of the intent seems to be that of squeezing the Palestinians to the maximum extent possible. There's even been statements from certain hardliners in Israel of how the solution, the final solution, will be that of pushing the Palestinians out of Gaza. Not too long ago, we heard of US President Donald Trump talking about Jordan and Egypt taking in the Palestinians as if this could easily solve the problem. Wishful thinking. But also, I just want to remind viewers, earlier on you were discussing yesterday's grim, terrible tragedy in Balochistan. And it is a tragedy. The more we mourn that tragedy,
it's a heinous incident.
Terrible. But let's not forget that in Gaza, the Palestinians are totally defenseless. Here we are talking about a Pakistani response, and let's also consider ourselves blessed that we do have the capacity as a country to respond to this. So let's not forget, we have plenty of challenges internally. I mean, we have to admit that, but at the same time, we do have the capacity. This is what happens to communities, countries which leave themselves totally defenseless. And that is what is happening in Gaza and the rest of the world. Countries close as well as further away from Gaza so far seem to have paid no more than lip service, because the alternative is the use of force. Is anyone prepared to do that? For the moment, absolutely not. Where this will end, how this will conclude, could we have passive resistance of the kind that was viewed in the 80s and the 90s in South Africa under apartheid, and that transformed South Africa. Is that the way forward? Maybe. But it's too early to reach a complete foregone conclusion on that score.
But we still, despite the ceasefire, are in a genocide-like situation. As
Oh,
we speak.
it is genocide. I mean, what else can you call it?
You know, Farhan Sahab also, Hamas condemns Israel's decision to cut off the electricity supply. It says that this is a cheap and unacceptable blackmail. When we talk of blackmail, let's talk of the ceasefire agreement. There are two divergent points of view as far as the future of the ceasefire agreement is concerned. The Israeli side wants an extension, a 60-day extension of this first phase, in order to, which what I believe, and I'm sure you would agree with me, to clear as many hostages as possible and then go revert to the situation that was before the ceasefire. And that is what Hamas understands, and that's why it's saying, no, we want to move towards the phase 2 of the agreement. In all of that scenario, where do you think things will move forward as far as the ceasefire is concerned? Because, of course, everybody is in Doha as we speak.
Look, right now, it's a very grim picture. It's a very grim situation. Israeli government so far has pushed the use of force to the maximum extent possible. The one country that could forcefully pull them back is the United States, but the United States, especially under Donald Trump, seems to be in no mood to do that. There are certain voices emanating from Europe, but that's more by way of diplomatic actions than anything else. So out of this entire situation, I think one has to be very skeptical. And the idea of a phase 2 is really to go for some kind of a more permanent ceasefire. And by the way, even then, you cannot be certain that the Israelis would suddenly not open.
I think they are just waiting for their hostages to be returned. As soon as their hostages are returned, they will return to the pre-ceasefire situation.
Well, and with Netanyahu, you can't trust him. So the question is, with that kind of an interlocutor on the Israeli side, can you trust the Israeli government?
Trust is a huge issue.
Even if they've signed on the dotted line, you cannot. So then, what do? Might is right, and that's the message that you're sending to Hamas, to Palestinians.
All right. Now, in the same wake, we have two versions of what's going to happen post-war in Gaza. There is the U.S. plan of the Riviera of the Middle East, and then there is the Arab countries' plan, which has been backed by the Arab countries as well as the OIC now, and European countries as well. 5 Arab states have presented this Egypt-led reconstruction plan for Gaza to the U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, who is in Doha for these ceasefire talks, which include Egypt, Jordan, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, UAE, and the Palestine Liberation Organizations. But mixed signals are coming as far as Washington is concerned. What's your take on that? What will happen? And let's be very cautiously optimistic, let's put it that way, and say, oh, the ceasefire continues, and ultimately they agreed to some kind of reconstruction phase in Gaza. Whose version is going to be accepted?
Look, the whole Riviera business is no more than a pipe dream, and there are plenty of pipe dreams that have come from Donald Trump in the early days of his presidency, whether it's taking over Greenland or taking over Canada or seizing the Panama Canal. It's very hard to take any of this seriously. For us as Pakistan, as Pakistanis, we are now awaiting news of the visa situation and exactly what the implications of that will be for Pakistani travelers to the US. So I don't take that seriously. The problem with the second version is that that is the road to stability, to road towards ending the conflict and taking this situation towards some kind of a resolution. Is Israel going to have the buy-in, or are they going to keep on fighting with the US backing? That's really the ultimate question. And for now, it seems that Israel as a country is hell-bent, determined to have its say as before. So I doubt if either one of these two scenarios that you've mentioned here, you put on the table, I doubt if any one of these two scenarios is going to
be applied in letter and principle. That's what you say. Another thing that's very interesting is the fact that US President Donald Trump had talked about, countries in the neighborhood to accept the Palestinians so that Gaza is completely eliminated. I shouldn't use the word eliminated, free of people, emptied of people of origin from Gaza. Now there was a joint press very recently in which a question was asked to him regarding this very thing, and the US leader told reporters at the White House that nobody was expelling any Palestinians from Gaza, and this statement has of course been welcomed by Hamas. Again, is this a statement for statement's sake, or has there been a change of plans as far as Donald Trump is concerned?
Doesn't this tell you much about the complete absence of seriousness? First it was the Riviera, which was, as I said earlier, pipe dream, complete pipe dream. Now it's this, that no one is going to be forcibly eliminated. So the question is, what is happening at the White House?
What is also happening, Farhan Saab, is that Hamas and the US have had talks after 1997. After decades, the US calls Hamas, and they have, I don't know what the details of the discussions were, but this happens, Is this also a reaction of that?
Again, what happens, what's been going on behind the scenes can only be a matter of speculation. The US talking to Gaza in itself is completely meaningless unless it evolves into those talks and evolve into something more tangible, more meaningful.
Farhan, Adam Boehler, who's the US envoy for captives, says we are the US, we are not an agent of Israel. This is as quote unquote. Is there a lot of Israeli pressure on the US to move away from any kind of ceasefire?
Who knows? Not coming out publicly saying that we are not an agent of Israel is fine, but is that going to translate into tangible action, such as, for example, blocking further arms sales to Israel, given that they've already received large volumes of arms, and the arms that they've already received eventually has put tons of blood on America's hands as well as Israel's hands.
Now, speaking of that, my last question to you concerns this McCarthyite witch hunt that the US Senate is engaging in by holding hearings targeting students and professors who speak out for Palestinian rights. We have the issue of Khalid, who has been taken by ICE despite the fact that he's a green card holder because he initiated protests that were pro-Palestine. What is going to happen vis-a-vis this kind of movement that has begun, which reminds us, that is why I said McCarthyite witch hunt, reminds us of that era as well. Is this a revival of such a mechanism in which anybody who wants to talk about issues that concern certain societies or segments of the societies will be targeted deliberately? Doesn't this also directly affect the First Amendment, which is part of the US Constitution? What's your take?
Look, first of all, I would urge younger people in our own country to go back to reading up on their history of the United States, post Second World War in particular, the world order, how it evolved, and the US role in the evolution of that order, and then internally within the US, trends within the US, the McCarthy era, as you say, because I doubt if younger people, that many younger people in our country would be aware of that. So go back and read that history. America has become a hugely divided country. And what is happening today under Donald Trump, according to some in the US itself, is going to have terrible consequences down the line. How would US divisions show themselves is a matter of debate, but it's becoming an increasingly divided country. It's completely the opposite of US history, a land that was inhabited and practically created mostly by immigrants. What happened to the natives is another chapter, and a very sorry chapter in America's history. But this is not going to go well eventually.
I think this is the beginning of a new chapter. I don't know which kind of chapter it's going to be as far as the global order, as far as the global politics and US politics is concerned. Where that will take the world and the US and the people in the US is something that we will only have to wait and see. But of course, we are seeing a lot of signs of what is happening and what could happen in the days to come. Farhan, Bokhari sahab, thank you very much to have joined us, foreign affairs analyst, discussing Gaza situation. And of course, all that is emanating from that. All we wish, I'm sure a lot of people will agree with me, is that this ceasefire agreement goes to stage 2, goes to the phase 2, and that we can finally have peace in the Middle East. But I know this is maybe something that is still far away from a lot of people's imagination, but we can always be positive.
A huge, massive leap of faith.
Let's have that leap of faith. At least I think we need to have that leap of faith. Thank you very much again, sir. Please stay with us 2 more minutes while I end the show. Last 2 stories. First, Canada announces additional tariffs of $20.7 billion of US goods in response to the American steel and aluminium levies. The finance minister in Canada, Dominique LeBlanc, on Wednesday announced these retaliatory tariffs of $29.8 billion Canadian dollars, which comes up to $20.7 billion US dollars of US goods, because President Donald Trump in the US had imposed a 25% levy on steel and aluminium products, and Canada is the biggest foreign supplier of steel and aluminium to the US. These tariffs are to go into effect from Thursday morning, that is from this morning, but there's a difference of 12 hours. And the LeBlanc also said that they would affect products such as computers, sports equipment, and cast iron products. Also, on Wednesday, the European Union has announced countermeasures against some US goods in a tit-for-tat move against the steel and aluminium tariff. So, this is also something that is part of a trade war that I don't know what kind of consequences it's going to have on the people in the long run. Finally, an international team of scientists, ladies and gentlemen, are developing genetically modified mosquitoes that could halt the spread of malaria. Yes, this is actually happening, and yes, we could maybe see as a result of that the end or a huge reduction as far as cases of malaria is concerned, which is one of the world's most deadliest diseases. Scientists are genetically modifying these mosquitoes to stop the malaria. The technique, which uses genes that are taken from honeybee and the African clawed frog, blocks the normal growth of the malaria parasite inside the mosquito. This means a mosquito bite in regions of the world where disease is endemic no longer carries a potential death sentence. How implementable will this be in the longer run? What kind of consequences could this have in the longer run is something that we will really have to wait and see. But I would say it's a measure in the very right direction. Let's hope it gets more and more support and implementation across the world. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us, you in Pakistan. Allah Hafiz.